Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage your MC for the AI Engineer Paris, Developer Experience Engineer, Ralph Chabry.
Yes. Hello, AI Engineer Paris. So I'm Raouf, your MC for the next 2 days, and I'm super happy to be here with you today. And I would like to start by saying thank you. Whether you're tuning in online or here with us today in Paris, we couldn't do this without your support. So let's hear it from you guys. Woohoo! We have an amazing event and lineup for you guys in the next 2 days. You're here for a treat. Believe me, I've seen some of the talks, and they're just fantastic. You're going to learn and hear from European and international experts and leaders in the AI space, and we couldn't feel better about having the event in Paris and in Station F. So we see so many European labs and startups like Mistral AI, Black Forest Labs, and Qtie, who are redefining the state of the art in open models, in generative media, and beyond. And Paris is at the center of all this innovation, and this is why we are here today. This event is building on the successes of AI Engineer World's Fair and Summit in San Francisco and New York that gathered thousands of engineers from around the world and who shared their best practices and experience building with AI. And at the World's Fair in San Francisco this year, we had over 150 sessions across 18 tracks discussing topics like software engineer agents, MCP, generative media, robotics, GraphRag, and AI infrastructure, and more. And we're bringing all that energy here to Paris today. Speaking of GraphRag and AI infrastructure, shout out to our platinum sponsors, Neo4j and Docker. A huge thank you also to our gold sponsors, Sentry, Arise AI, DeepMind, and Algolia. And of course, to all our sponsors and partners, without you, this event wouldn't even be possible. So many of these folks actually brought their teams of engineers and PMs and execs and even founders to meet you guys. So please, take the time to go and check out the expo, make new connections, and also maybe you're going to land your next partnership, job, or even customer. Speaking of upstairs, we also have registrations upstairs. I see many badges here, so which is good news. But make sure to get your ticket for tonight's welcome party. That's gonna land you a free drink. And if you see badges, we'll have many colors. We have blue, black, orange badges if you are an attendee, but it will also have a great team to support you throughout this event, wearing green and purple badges. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. So what to expect from today? Well, we have amazing guests and a talk by Mistral AI. But please make sure to stick around for tonight's party. And we're going to be very happy to have you there, and you're going to meet great engineers, founders, and leaders in the AI space. But before that, let's hear from our first guest. Our next guest is a person that I'm lucky enough to call a friend, and who I truly admire. He's been in the developer community space for years. He's behind Reactathon, behind Jamstack.conf, and he also co-founded AI Engineer with Swyx. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage co-founder of AI Engineer, Benjamin Dunphy.
All right. When Swyx and I founded AI Engineer more than 2 years ago, we both had a strong desire to extend the brand beyond the events that we produce ourselves. Inspired by great conference series like JSConf, we envisioned a future where community members would organize events around the world, and we would show up as attendees. And while this is a nice theory, it's not so easy in practice, especially if you have a high bar for the quality of content, brand, and experience, because it takes the right partner who has the vision, the drive, the grit, the professionalism, and the risk tolerance to organize a successful, high-quality, and high-signal conference. So we had to be very selective with who we partnered with, especially for our very first community event. And that's why we're happy that we selected our friends at Koyib. Let's hear it for Koyib. So tonight, thanks to our wonderful partners at Koyib, and on behalf of the entire organizing team, staff, and volunteers, I have the distinct honor to welcome you, not as a host, but as a fellow attendee, as a fellow member of a community that has grown beyond its founders, beyond San Francisco, into something bigger, a community that has taken its first step to becoming a global movement. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to AI Engineer Paris.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage co-founder and CEO at Koyib, Yann Leger.
Hello, and I'm thrilled to take my turn to welcome you today at the first AI Engineer Conference organized outside of the US. Here in Paris, in the beautiful Paris, which is my home city, the home city of our company Koyib, and a beautiful place that if you're visiting, I hope you'll enjoy. This conference is particularly unique to us at Koyib. It's the first time we're organizing an event of this scale, and some of our team members spent the last 3 months making this event happen for you, so I hope you'll enjoy it. Over the next 24 hours, engineers, CTO, engineering managers, and a variety of attendees coming from all over the world will join us. You all are, as far as I know, 70% coming outside of France. So we are pretty excited to have you all here tonight and to have this amazing crowd to join us for this first event outside of the US. Today and tomorrow, you will see an incredible lineup of over 30 speakers talking about how they build foundational models deploy MCP at scale, their experience, vibe coding, and more. We put a special attention in inviting on stage several leaders of AI startups founded and operating in Europe, including Lélio, who will be speaking tonight from Mistral. He's head of engineering at Mistral. I hope you'll enjoy his talk. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Koyeb, where we provide high-performance serverless infrastructure for AI applications. We're not an event company. So we're accelerating application deployment with a seamless way to deploy agents and inference services and models across CPUs, GPUs, and accelerator, but we love fostering AI communities, and we love connecting both sides of the Atlantic. Tonight, I want to thank our team, especially Alistair, Jen, and Edouard, who have been working relentlessly during the last 3 months to make this event a success. The entire Koyeb team, who you will probably meet during the course of this event and tonight or tomorrow. And of course, Raouf, our MC, who will be animating for this 24 coming hours, and the AI engineering team, Swyx and Ben, who trusted us in making this event happen. Now, I want to welcome Marwan on stage. So Marwan is head of startups at Station F. Station F has been our own for the last 4 years, and I want to give him an opportunity to say a word and welcome you with me tonight.
Thanks. This one is working. Bonsoir à tous. Good evening. Super happy to see all of you. Super cool to see such a big crowd here. So my name is Marwan. I'm the head of startup programs and partnerships at Station F. And you know, I'm part of the founding staff of this beautiful place. And you know, when I see you, it's exactly what we are here for, to gather talented people and to create connections between maybe some founders here in the room. So where are you exactly? You are at Station F. So Station F, for those of you who are here for the first time or people who are watching online, it's a massive startup place. We launched 8 years ago. We have 1,000 startups here in the same spot. They are participating to at least 30 programs. Some are in cybersecurity, some are in quantum computing, some are in AI, obviously. And a big congrats to Koyeb, because Koyeb is not just one startup among the 1,000 startups we have, it's one of the top ones. You know, every year we unveil a list of the best 40 companies of Station F, the best 40 across the 1,000, and Koyeb is part of them. So big congrats, and super happy that they have this ability to gather such a big crowd. And to conclude, you know, Station F is a big AI place, one of the biggest in Europe. 70% of our startups are in AI, or they have some AI components in their key offer. You know, the biggest alumni we have is Hugging Face. Hugging Face, they were born here, so they were here in 2017 and 18, so it's one of the biggest alumni we were lucky to have. And well, I just have one next step, or two next steps. Well, enjoy you stay at Station F, enjoy the party just after, enjoy the sessions, of course. And of course, if one of you here in the room thinks about building an AI company, well, stay tuned. We're going to announce some big new offers at Station F in the coming weeks. Big thank you. Merci.
Thank you, Marwan. Now that Marwan welcomed you and gave you some insight about this unique place, I'm excited to give the floor to someone quite important in this journey, Swyx, the other co-founder of AI engineers. So please give a round of applause to Swyx. Thank you, Swyx.
That was very dramatic. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jan, for the kind intro. And it's so nice to finally be in Station F. We've heard so much about it from the US, and to see this live in person is it's really an update for me on like the sort of the Paris AI scene and the tech scene in Europe in general. So very excited to be here. I was given basically a general task of just give some kind of like state of affairs. We've been thinking a lot about agents this year for AI Engineer, and we started the year, basically focusing on the quote-unquote year of agents. So I just wanted to give an update and give a broad overview of where I'm thinking that AI engineering is going this year. Okay, so this clicker is not working. Okay, all right. AGI is not here yet, so we have to solve that. So I gave this talk at the first AI Engineer Summit of this year, right? And so basically, we're just updating this talk on what has happened since then, right? So this was in the early part of the year, and back then, a lot of people were saying 2025 is the year of agents, and if you say it by Satya, if you say it by Roman from OpenAI, if you say it from Greg Brockman from OpenAI, and Sam Altman also from OpenAI, maybe you say it enough, it will actually finally come true. I think more broadly, a lot of people have to discuss what is the definition of agents, and I think this is something that you come across in your discussions over the next few days. And I think the evolving definition is mostly reflected here in Simon's post, which is something like last week, which is agent equals to an LLM with tools. You put in a loop and you give it a goal that is directed. I actually did a bit more work on all the definitions of agents. So if you want to go over the agent engineering talk, we have intent, memory, planning, authority, control flow, and tools. And so I definitely, if you are in the agent discussion, I definitely want to push you towards discussing the harder parts and not be too simplistic about forgetting that really good memory, really good planning, and really good trust and authority actually helps you build better agents that people will not hate. I think the other thing that's really driving us this year, I can see that this is out-of-date slide, is that we're starting to see one of the most epic infrastructure build-outs of all time. I think that this is one of those things where the numbers kind of start to haze and not make sense. When Stargate was announced at the start of this year, most people were kind of doubtful that there was actually money to back into it. But now we're actually able to see that we actually have hundreds of billions of dollars available to invest, and I think this is only the start. I think that bodes very, very well for the rest of us downstream of this infra build. I'm going to refresh the slides briefly, just because I know that this is out of date. Let's see. Okay, yeah, it looks like I can play this. Having done this enough, I know exactly what went wrong. Okay, so I think the other thing that's whenever I talk about this kind of infra build out with people, a lot of people who are skeptics are saying that the AI usage is not really there. And I think that's not really true. ChatGPT is going to hit 1 billion users in 2 months. And it is pretty much guaranteed that it will take over the planet, insofar as Google has taken over the planet. And I think these are, if you look at the projections and the sort of historical estimates of all the compute that's being used and probably will be used, it's pretty evident that this is actually just the beginning of a giant infra build-out. So really, I think the point I wanted to make is the same point that Andre Karpathy made at YC Startup School around the middle of this year, which is that it's actually not 2025 is the year of agents. It's actually the next 10 years we're going to be building a lot of agents, and there's the most epic historical tailwind you've ever seen in your tech career, which is fantastic. You know where the future is going to go in roughly, and you can sort of point your career, your startups, your businesses in that direction. The second thing we're seeing this year is increasingly agentic models. This is a very hard slide to put together, but basically this is every single major model launch that that sort of hit my radar. By the way, you don't have to take a photo of this. You can see it on my website, and I can tweet it out later as well. I bolded the ones that I think will probably stand the test of time. There's shout out to Mistral, Magistral in there, but also the Chinese models, Qwen 3 Coder, GLM 4.5, as well as the Frontier Labs. I think the way that I can most concisely describe what agentic models look like is they are thinking with tools. We wrote this piece as part of the sort of GPT-5 developer preview, and we wrote this piece about how, if you sort of zoom in over here, God, I can't zoom in on this screen. God, sorry. The kind of thinking that you can get with tools is increasingly of this format, where you can basically start to instrument your thinking, and you start to, and the thinking process starts to use tool calls. And I think you see more and more of this over time. I'm sorry the contrast is not very high, but I mean, that's just more incentive to go read Latent Space and see the actual blog post itself. The other major side effect or obvious observable impact is you start to see increasing autonomy, right? Like, I think if you see, like, for example, like the Replit agent launch, they'll talk about like now they have like 200 minutes of autonomy, and I think like we'll start to see hours and days of autonomy, and I think like that is the models are specifically being post-trained to do that, which is really fascinating for people who are building agents. And I think the last part that is really driving this is like now we're realizing how to do RL and LLMs, such to the point where we're starting to allocate the same amount of compute on post-training as we did on pre-training, and this never used to be the case prior to this year. But here's XAI proudly saying that they're doing it for Grok 4. They also said recently that they did some more similar stuff for Grok 4 Fast, and I think like that's like obviously where these things are going. Okay, so that's the agentic, that's the model side. On the engineering side, which is what we're all here to do, AI engineering, we don't really, most of us will not really control the models, but what we can do is what we build around the models. And that's agent products, agent protocols, agent labs. So here are also like some of the notable agents. There's absolutely no way I can ever list all the good agents. So if I miss your agent, sorry, just find me outside and I'll add you to the list. But again, I've bolded a number of the important agents, and I think it's important to see how far we've come along in the last 9 months. We've only, we're here in September of 2025. And things like OpenAI Deep Research seems really old now. Codex CLI launched in April, but only recently became popular. I think it's a really interesting look back at like how fast the agent field evolves. We in AI engineering like really care about agent protocols. We made a particular bet on MCP in the last AI Engineer Summit, including a workshop that was very, very well viewed. And I think like that is obviously has taken over. I kind of don't really need to explain more. But I think like what else is after the MCP, or what else is being built on top of MCP or with the MCP spec, I think is still an open question. So Google has introduced A2A, but I also actually would want to shout out Zed for ACP, which is Agent Client Protocol, which actually sort of starts to be the interop layer for all the terminal agents like Cloud Code and OpenAI Codex. I think that's very interesting for all the tooling that is starting to emerge, right? Like we're no longer connecting to these things on the model layer. Like we're not just changing the model string. We're actually changing the entire agent. We're swapping out the user interfaces for different agents as well. So I highly recommend checking out Zed's ACP if you haven't looked at it. The other thing that I think is an emerging consensus is actually something that came out of Mistral's work on the Agents API. So Mistral actually kind of solidified this trend where every company, every model lab has an agent API that has a bundle of tools that is the standard library of what an agent's sort of platform should have. So you should have a code execution sandbox, you should have web search, you should have a document library, maybe you have image gen, I don't know, I feel like the Black Forest Labs people will have a strong opinion on that one, and you probably have MCP sort of connecting to the universe. So this is my update of Ajay Karpathy's 2023 thesis on the LLM-OS. We've really pretty much mapped out what we definitely need for search, for code execution, for document library, and for multimodal input and multimodal output. What is still missing, and also we have MCP. What is still missing is good memory and really good orchestration. There's some emerging candidates, but nobody has really won here. I think there's a lot of opportunity to build in the LLM-OS. Okay, so then I think the last part is like, I guess, more pertinent to me and like the stuff that I'm focused on. I think code agent labs this year have really exploded. I recently blogged about cognition and why I think something like the sort of pull code is code AGI will be achieved in 20% of the time of full AGI, but capture 80% of the value. And I think like not all agents are created equal is basically what I'm saying there. And this is why over in the US, for our code summit, we're actually announcing our first ever AI Engineer Summit entirely focused on coding agents. And so we're heading back to New York in November for that one. So check that out if you're interested in specifically coding agents. I wanted to close with some open debates where I think like this time if we meet again next year, we will probably have some solutions, or I actually just want to encourage you guys to come up with answers. The first one is, do we need evals? I accidentally, I got really pissed off at like some people sort of overhyping evals, and I think here's Boris, the sort of chief architect of Cloud Code, saying that we tried really hard to build evals, but yeah, man, in the end, it's all vibes. So the single most successful coding agents so far this year, 500 million in revenue, no evals, just vibes. And I think that's cool. I think a lot of people who are sort of have their professional identity tied in with evals, I think like that makes sense for a small domain that you need to hill climb on. But if you have a very general field, it's actually not obvious that you should do evals first, or actually have evals as a blocking restriction on your product development. And I think that's a bit controversial. That's why I just put it as an open question, because I do not have the answers. I just asked them. I just asked the questions. The second one is how to do context engineering very well. We have Cognition and Anthropic side by side saying build multi-agents, don't build multi-agents. But really, I think the multi-agent debate is also part and parcel of the context engineering debate. AI Engineer World's Fair in June talked about this, so I highly recommend checking out that article as well. I think we'll develop this more over time. There's actually no current standard way of viewing context engineering apart from a couple blog posts, and I think probably there's a couple startups in here that are worth building, that will emerge over time. The third one is actually less consensus, but it's definitely, I'm hearing it in the Valley a lot, and I'm sharing it with you guys, is fast agents. What do I mean by fast agents? Cerebra's code is one example, but there's other examples, like Samba Nova has come up with some stuff, Grok has come up with some stuff. But here's every model provider providing your normal tokens per second at, like, let's say 100, 200 tokens per second. And that's Cerebra's code all the way over the other side at 2,000 tokens per second. And I think every 10x you get in speed, you unlock different kinds of behavior in just both users and your sort of product possibilities. So people are definitely exploring this. So this last part is my catch-all. I think over the next year, we're basically going to see a lot more development in all these domains. Email clients, browser agents, voice calling, vibe coding, low code, and education agents. I think the last part, education, is something that my co-founder Ben is super excited about. We should be announcing the AI Engineer Education Summit pretty soon. So that's all. I wanted to, that's as concise as I can make it for the state of agents. If you want to come talk to me about any of these, I can obviously talk your ear off about it. But I just wanted to set the context for all you guys, and thank you so much. I'm looking forward to chatting with you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage Head of Engineering at Mistral AI, Lélio Lavaud.
Hi, everyone. Very happy to be here. Thanks to the COIEP team and to the AI engineer team for welcoming me. It's an honor to be in Paris, where Mistral was born a little more than 2 years ago. Just need another slider. No. I'll just use my arrows. It's going to be fine. So what is Mistral? Mistral has been founded, as I said, a little more than 2 years ago by scientists rooted in engineering and science. The initial authors of Gemini, Llama, Chinchilla papers, and with the main goal and objective to bring AI to the enterprise world, and also, obviously, to advance open source and open models. And this is why, after a few months of work, we released Mistral 7B, which was the state-of-the-art small model that actually triggered a spur of experimentations, fine-tuning, and new usages among the community and the open source community. After a few months, we also released the first mixture of expert model, Mistral 8x7B, which was actually a great model that also was very welcome by the community. And it was fun in San Francisco at GTC in spring 24, when some people from one of the biggest oil company in the world came to me and said, "We're building such amazing usage on top of Mistral 8x7b, and we have fine-tuned it, and we're actually putting this in production and getting amazing returns." But we had never heard about them at all. They never reached out, and we never built something with them. That's where we really saw that the mission of providing open source models to actually bring the AI to the masses was also compatible with pushing enterprise beyond and building some strong focus. So what we build at Mistral, sorry about this slide, it's very corporate. I did not make it. But basically, we do have foundational model. This is what the science team is building. We're also continuing pre-training with specific customers to bring more rare languages or specific capabilities to those customers. We do provide Mistral AI Studio, which is a wrapper on top of that, providing any kind of tools and API you need to build complex AI applications. Obviously, this starts with completion APIs, but then you have conversation and stateful APIs, and more than that. Obviously, we also provide some products. So you have heard about Le Chat, which is our assistant, Mistral Code, which is our agentic code completion tool, basically. And we do build custom solutions for specific customers with a strong team of solution and applied engineers. So we started with 7. Now it's more than 100 engineers, 100 researchers, and 100 applied engineers actually implementing those solutions. But you have seen these numbers, and you know that actually POCs fail in production, and that enterprises actually struggle to find some value in AI. And so I'm not going to dive into the precise numbers and everything, but I'm going to talk about how we do try to overcome some of those obstacles and how we try to make AI a reality for our customers. So what do they face? They face issues with data, with the observability layer, with the skills gap, internally and externally. And obviously, sometimes it's our fault. Sometimes the models are not great. So about data. Data is massive, and it's unstructured. Enterprises have accumulated data for the past, for a few years, for a few decades for some of them, and they've put this data pretty much everywhere without an AI policy. And that makes sense because AI did not exist. But without this strong AI governance, this means that you have silos of data everywhere in different providers. That is not attached to the proper metadata. That is not meant for an AI system to actually investigate and dig in. And this means that those poor data management practices actually result to really strong challenges in bringing this data together and bringing value. The fact that we have so many providers is also a challenge, because each provider now knows that this data is worth gold. And so each provider is now inventing their AI assistant, an AI agent. And if you're using SaaS, you now know that you have access to 15 different kind of SaaS assistants that basically all wrap up OpenAI API, Claude API, or sometimes Mistral's API, and basically do the same thing, but over the data that they propose. But none of them work on interoperability. Obviously, we do have MCP servers, and that's great, but that's usually not enough. And that usually means that the providers are in charge of providing you with search, for instance. But search is not always good. And if you want to actually interact with all this data, you need this kind of layer, unification layer, to actually make sense of things that can be spread out on Google Drive, on Microsoft Teams, or on Slack. Obviously, all those providers have a different vision of access control, of RBAC, and it's really hard to have a unified model of who has access to what. So this is why we're, and obviously, you're thinking about RAG, right? If you have access to multiple MCP servers and multiple knowledge bases, you can use RAG everywhere, and everything is going to be solved. Well, that's not exactly true, because if you work at Super SOC in a corporation, making the best SOCs in the world, and you really want to know what are the SOCs sales of last year, if you just provide this query, well, you might find great answers in annualreport.pdf, which is from 2013. And then maybe your RAG is going to provide you with 2014 PDF report. But if you do not have the proper context, and this context is very, very enterprise and customer specific, then the model might not even be able to actually understand what it is, because you will have 5 chunks with annualreport.pdf that are in different folders, but this is not necessarily provided to the model. So building a strong context engine that is able to build some heuristics and that is able to actually understand the link between entities that might be residing in different data silos among different providers to actually make sense of this data that is spread out everywhere and map it to some kind of ontology, understanding the entities, and basically providing an AI-first data organization is the key to building strong data-based systems. So another issue, obviously, is the black box phenomenon. So everybody wants to observe and everybody wants to explain a technology that is inherently non-deterministic. Obviously, this is a challenge. So instead of that, you want to actually provide all the tools that you need to achieve the goals of your customers, which are trust. How can I be sure that the model is right? Well, you cannot be sure. But what you can be sure of is that I will provide you sources that you can check. Or I will classify that based on the input, the output that you got actually makes sense, and that the model did not completely diverge. And so this is providing the set of tools that will get you to the kind of trust that you need, and safety. Safety being very relative, because obviously the safety, if you're building something to moderate Reddit comments, is very different than if you're trying to power kids' chatbot. So this is all context dependent, but this is also extremely important, especially in a regulatory environment that is moving very fast, where you also have to prove to many different actors that you're doing things right. So once you actually collect all this data, you want to watch people do what they do. And in enterprise context, it's really important to use this to understand how people are actually doing their job. How are they, processing their days? What kind of workflows are they putting in place? And observing is a key to that, because AI is not just what people have been using, which is basically ChatGPT-like assistants, which are providing a lot of individual value, but do not convert into profits and losses optimizations for companies. So you actually need to understand how people are using it. If you give them a task, how do they do it? And what are the different queries that they actually perform, and how do you automate that? And for this, you need to actually observe all this data and then extract some insights out of them to help the companies change and transform. And then once you've collected all this data, obviously you can improve your own models. What does it mean to improve your models? Well, that's very easy. You have seen how the chatbot assistants have improved over the years, the past few years. This is because they collected a massive amount of data and were able to optimize the models. Well, you need to do the same thing for enterprise and large customers situations. You are collecting this data. You need to make something out of it. You can make models that are even, sometimes better, sometimes smaller, that are optimized to work with certain set of tools, certain sets of connectors. All of this can be done if you're collecting this data and really try to use it the same way that the big players used it to improve their chatbots. So how do we get to maturity after all that? Well, obviously, there is a model performance part. I will take my responsibility here. You need very strongly aligned models because you're getting into more and more complex processes with longer system prompts, and you need you need the model to strictly adhere to it. There is a lot of things going on with structured outputs and tool calls. You need them to be very reliable. You need the model to understand the intents, and obviously speed. Swyx was talking about Cerebras and fast agents. I think that's something that is obviously, once you've tasted to a fast model, even though you might say it's not the most important thing, it's really hard to go back. And so optimizing the models to make them smaller or to optimize inference is also a key part of what we're doing. The expertise, I mentioned it briefly. Well, people do not really know what AI is. And so the lack of expertise really grows on us because it's hard to explain to the customer what is AI and what is not AI, what to expect, what not to expect. And we need to train the workers at the customers. We need to train our own workers. We need to train everyone to understand how these models behave, how we can improve them, how we can make everything better, and how system prompting works, why the model is behaving quite differently in a certain way. Evaluating this and not just vibe checking or vibing your system prompts is something that you really need to educate the customers with. Otherwise, they will just send you a prompt and say, well, it works. Well, it works, but does it really work on all cases? And so this is really an education problem that we're facing. And finally, all of this is just bringing change, and huge change to corporations and organizations. So AI can be just a tool, but then it's a finite project. But AI is really more of a capacity, and once you've integrated this, you can actually change the way you're actually doing business. It can be a transformation enabler. I did not mention agents a lot, and this is because I usually don't like talking about things I don't know, and I don't know what is an agent. But an agent can be, just doing a micro-action and wrapping an MCP call. An agent might be performing a very complex set of tasks. An agent can be pretty much anything, what you want to be. But what matters is the actual business case or workflow that you're trying to solve. What problem are you solving? If agents are a part of the puzzle or the bigger, the big puzzle, whatever. What matters is that you're trying to solve a problem from end to end. And agents can be a part of that or not, whatever. That's important. So how does AI transform organization? Well, there is growth. So how you basically increase profit. You create new use cases, new applications. You're doing new stuff, creating new products, processing new data that you did not used to process before. And this is really bringing new revenue and creating new opportunities. On the other hand, efficiency is also an extremely important part of what customers are asking. How do I make how do I reduce my costs, basically? How do I make my organization and my workers more efficient by streamlining their processes, by saving them time, by crushing all this data and providing ready-to-go insights? And those are really two sides of the same coin that are crucial to understand how we can use cases to solve enterprise situations. So to sum it up, you need to build AI your way, and this is really a matter of training and making sure that you actually set up the flywheel of AI, right? You will build, you will deploy, you will observe, then you will improve, and you will start over again. Making sure that you can actually customize things, and that you're not just thinking AI as an off-the-shelf solution, and you just need to enter your credentials, and then boom, then it works. You really need to tailor the AI to your use cases. Obviously, leveraging the community, I mentioned open source at first, but we learned so much by actually publishing our models. And the community has done so much by fine-tuning, providing data sets, providing so many examples on why we were failing. And we're great, for instance, at role-playing. Well, I discovered this amazing community of role players that were actually providing with extremely long prompts and super weird scenarios sometimes, but that also help to align the model because it now can understand instructions that are very complex. So open source has been the core of what we've done, and we're also now pushing enterprise solutions. And finally, breaking barriers is essential, making sure that you can actually get the data where it is. And some people are relying exclusively on MCP servers and say, okay, well, you'll have MCP servers for everything. And then you're dependent on many multiple providers doing their job of implementing MCP servers, maintaining them, and providing a good quality documentation, good quality OpenAPI.yaml. Sometimes it doesn't work, and this is why the community is also pushing to get custom browsers or browser add-ons and stuff like this, because you don't want to re-authenticate to 15 different SaaS providers just to get the data. So breaking the silos is also extremely important. And making sure that you avoid vendor lock-in so that you can actually build this context engine that brings everything in a single representation that helps the model perform well. So thank you very much for your attention, and happy to talk after the talk.
Thank you, Lélio. What an insightful presentation.
Thank you, Rav.
I'd like to invite you to join me for a couple of questions. All right. Please. Let me pull the questions on my phone. Okay, so what I found particularly fascinating and interesting is you mentioning that enterprises actually have these data silos where not all the teams has access to all the data that is generated by those teams, right? So how does Mistral actually help them in structuring that data?
That's a good question, because I mentioned that the data governance was not there, and you might think, okay, we need all those humans to actually set up a data policy and set up all those processes and stuff like this, but it's actually a bit of a loop, right? We do have AI to actually parse the data silos that we have, and classify them and understand the ontology and put things in the right order.
So using AI to get data, to structure data to
Exactly.
create more AI projects. Afterwards.
Exactly, and use the humans to guide the AI, but not requiring the humans to now say, okay, you're going to tidy this 15 years old drive. Good luck to you.
All right. Okay. I have a second question for you. So Mistral is known for its open models, and you mentioned in your presentation the 7B model that made you so famous because it was state-of-the-art in open models when it was released. So I was wondering how you strike a balance between building for enterprise customers, but also have this open model focus.
Yeah, that's a very good question. At first, we only did open models, but then obviously we saw a lot of companies and a lot of different actors capturing a lot of value that we were actually spending time and money to train models. So we're still convinced that pre-trained models are going to become a commodity and are going to be mainly open source. But then the post-training phase, where you can actually tweak a model, or the continuous pre-training, where you just add some more language or some more domain-specific knowledge, is somewhere that requires a lot of science, a lot of engineering work, and a lot of compute power that many customers do not have. And this is where we find the enterprise sweet spot, is by getting the base model, making sure that the community can make something out of it, but also trying to make it more specialized in some ways, so continuous pre-training, but also in post-training, because typically distilling like bigger models into smaller ones, you can do that in many different ways. If you don't do it efficiently in FP8 or things like this, you might need the expertise that we have, and then you need all the expertise to actually deploy them and link that to actual real-world use cases. And so I think we try to balance that as much as possible by pushing everything we can in the open domain, but also keeping some edge so that we can actually, make money, I guess.
So you guys basically have the compute power and the resources and the know-how to train these models, so might as well just make it available to enterprise customers as well to solve their problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And we really try to accompany those customers so that they're not alone with a base model and say like good luck. Here is the repo, and just press enter. Really try to accompany them, because knowing what kind of data to put, is the model actually converging in the right direction? Is the data diverse enough? Are problems that are not exactly solved? And we're really trying to help there.
Awesome. That's all for me, Lélio. Thank you so much. Let's give it up to Lélio. All right. Oops. Can you hear me? All right. This is the second time it happens to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Before we wrap this day up, how does everybody feel? Yeah, nice. Okay, so before we wrap it up, we have one more thing for you. We have a welcome party upstairs. So I hope I'll get to see every one of you tonight. Yeah, please don't forget about your ticket. That will give you a free drink. I think it's important, especially at this time of the night. So I'll see you all there. All right, thank you.